another amazing episode of Ahipara New Build, all about finishing lines, baby. Yeehaw! Oh, yeah, so pretty much what we're going to be doing is going to be putting all our finishing lines on. Now, we've actually already gone through and done a few, because we're sort of waiting in between the plaster and stuff like that, but now that the plaster is actually completely finished, we can go through and we can finish all them off, all our architraves. That's the first thing we want to do, start with our architraves, because our architraves go down to the ground, and then we can butt our skirting boards into it. So, little bits and pieces, we're going to teach you all the tips and tricks on how we get things nice and perfect, our miters and all that, so yeah. Woo! Let's get it! First things first, we need to figure out the positioning of our architrave, okay? So, we don't want to put our architrave flush with the inside of the jam like that. We want to have a little bit of a quirk here like this. Now, my preference is 2 mil, so you go through and mark around the outside with your square. If I can get my frickin' square in the right spot. Right, 2 mil like this, 2 mil on the corners, all the way around. And now what that's going to do is that's going to give us a good guide on where our architrave needs to go. It's also going to give us a distance that we can measure to the top, right? So in this situation, butting hard down into the floor, and we measure up to our mark at the top. So we've got 19, 2 meters, 2 meters 18 there. So I'll just put a little 2 meters 18, right? And now I'll also just do this other side. Double check. Probably going to be a bit smaller. 2 meters 17, 2 meters 17, and then I'll actually make this one a little longer because I'll show you why in a second. So I'm going to make that about 1 meter. So sometimes when the plasters come through on an internal collar like this, there will be actually plaster on the jam itself. So we just want to make sure that we've got a nice clean jam before we go stick them on. And then what we'll do is we just check that we've got a good sting there, which is pretty perfect, hard down. We've only got a 5 mil flooring, so I'm just trying to keep it hard down as possible and they can come through and trim it off later. So now that we know it's good, just going to go through and put some PVA on it. 2 little strips. Yeah. Now I always like to start at the top, making sure that's good in and out, height-wise and width-wise. Now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to go down next to every one of my marks. Now my marks are set pretty much at the same height as my nails that I did for the jam. I don't know, that just gives good continuity between the distance of the pins. But that's too tight. That's how we like it.
That's what she said.
Hey! What did he say? Then I'll just go through and I'll put one in between those. And then on the edge like that. Okay, so once we've sort of pinned this first one off, I'm going to grab my top piece and I'm actually going to bring it over and I'm going to line it up with my pencil marks at the top. And then if it's a good miter, I'll just glue it and pin it on, but this side isn't. If you come and have a look, come up here. There's actually a small gap there, so what I'll do is I'll just put my pencil and I'll sort of eye up exactly how much needs to be taken off, and I'll put a little tiger's tit there. Go back to the saw and trim it. What I'll do is I'll just push my architrave up so it's nice and tight on my blade, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the thing slightly so it's off, and then I'll push my architrave back up and I'll actually see that little shadow line there. Don't know if you can see it, but you can see it's tight at the back and there's a bit of a gap at the front. That means I know that I've got the correct distance. So why I do that is that's just going to give me a better guide on how much I'm taking off instead of trimming it each time. So I'll use that guide on all my cuts. So now I'm good there. Now you can see I'm good there, good on my mark. You come have a look at that. Yeah, that's it.
Beautiful.
So tight joints everywhere. Now that I know that's good, just make sure I'm in my correct spot and then mark that.
Hopefully you guys can see the tool properly.
Okay. Also put a bit here. Pretty damn good there, look. So I'm happy with that. And that's pretty much the process we do for everything. All our architraves and around the windows and the doors. There's no real secret technique to it. Of course when I'm doing this demonstration, I'm only doing one. But in a situation, normally, I would do, see I'm working here, I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll do all 5 at the same time. So I'm not going backwards and forwards to the drop saw on every single one. Obviously that depends on your,
Ooh, lucky.
that depends on your skill set. If you can actually do that or not, like you should, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some people won't be able to do that because they're still in their apprenticeship, but that's the way I like to do it anyway.
Saves a lot of time.
Yeah, trying to save time. Because time is money. Okay, so a few things to note is don't pin too close to the corners. And we also, another thing we want to be thinking about when we're doing these is there's, if you have a look through here, we want to make sure that our gap is nice and tight along here through this edge. Sometimes you can actually have the jib board or the jam sticking out further and the architrave rolls around and it leaves a little gap there. I mean, there's not much you can do about it. I mean, there is, but you just put the jam in the right place. That's what you got to do. We'll go through and we'll just smash all those out. Hey, look at that face on your head. You're like,
Jam in the right place, eh?
yeah, jam it in the right place.
Hey!
But yeah, so the tighter we get these, the better they're going to last. They're not going to crack ever because we've got glue on them. And yeah. Thug life, baby.
Deuces.
What up, Holmes?
What up, Wolfpack?
The reason I don't want to put this 10mm architrave on in the bathroom is we have a 10mm tile going on the wall And that would be fine if the tile was going hard against the jib board, but we've got a tile screed that goes on first, and then the tile gets stuck to that, which adheres to the jib board and the back side of the tile, so it can actually stick on the wall, right? We'll also have waterproofing membranes, so there's build-ups everywhere. Now, what's that going to do is, you can imagine, come and look at this. If I've got a 10mm tile on, and then we've got, let's just say, 5mm build-up, we're going to have the tile sticking past the outside of the architrave here. And that we don't want that, because sometimes the tiler can be a little bit messy, right? And not get his tiles perfect. So we actually want to try and hide that imperfection with a bigger architrave. So I've gone through and I've made these 20mm architraves up, 20x60. And what that's going to do is that's going to hide any imperfections, and the tile's actually going to be allowed to butt into the architrave instead of protruding past. So now that I've ripped up my 60x20 architrave that goes in the bathroom, I actually have, I don't know if you guys can see that in the light, but I've got a ripping mark along my bevel edge through here. I need to make sure that that's nice and smooth before I put it in, because that's going to be a pain for the painter to sand and paint, and he probably won't do it. He'll just paint over the top of it. So first of all, I just planed the first little bit of my architrave, and then now I can actually come through, and I've clamped it down so I can actually get two hands on the plane and just get a nice clean finish on that. Now I'm also just going to go through with the sanding block here and just give it a bit of a tickle up. This is 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to get any leftover debris, get rid of the planer marks, and that's going to give a nice clean finish. So that's this face, and this face is going to look the same. Oops. Get rid of any of those. Just pause for a second. Now I also, because this is sort of clears, I'm just going to tickle up the edge here, the sandpaper, take the sharp edge off so the paint can stick to the corner. Otherwise that's just going to break off. Yeah, sweet. Yeah.
It starts getting cold, and we don't know any way out of here. We try to understand how it all started to go wrong, but the sea is way too deep. Yeah, it's deep.
Alright, so in a situation like this where my architrave doesn't actually fit between the wall and the timber jam itself, what I do is I take a measurement at certain points and figure out what the biggest measurement is. Then I'll just pretty much put that through the rip saw. So I've got a width that's closest to what it needs to be. And then I just stick it in place. And I just sort of look at it and see what needs to be taken off. And then I'll just put, little marks on how much needs to get taken off and where. And once I've done that, I pretty much just come over here and I use a straight edge, or I pretty much got my eyes pretty good, so I'm just going to use a butt plane and just slowly work the timber off where it needs to be, and then after a few tries of that, I'll go stick it up, and it should be pretty right as rain, mate. This is a little bit of a funny one because we've got our kidney. This is a little bit of a funny one because we've got our kidney. Oh my god.
Well, my first year, I played in.
Okay, so this is a little bit of a funny one. We've got our kitchen cabinetry coming through all the way to the side of this door, right? So when I go to put my architrave on, I don't want to be pushing past the kitchen cabinetry. Now I know cabinetry itself is 4180. So I'm just going to put a little mark here for 180 and come down to the bottom. I'll slide it through. Now, I'm pretty sure I've already done this, but I'm just checking with my architrave for 180. And that's going to give me my little line, yep. Now, I'm going to actually come off those marks about 2 mil, I would say. Just to give a bit of tolerance in the kitchen play. So hopefully, even if I line it up with that. Okay, so we get there. 480. So I've got to take some off it, which sort of works out kind of well because I've taken about 4 mil off that, so I might take 4 mil off this one and that should be good. Show us your haircut.
Big bag, big bag.
Oh, we got clumps in this one.
Pumps.
Hard to squeeze.
Oh yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, squeeze.
Yeah, damp rag, yeah. Don't forget that, bro. That's what I... If there's any excess glue over the top, I just use it's a damp rag, it's not wet. Damp, just wipe it off. Far out. Just like a baby's bottom. Woo! Okay, we're back on site this morning. And I've noticed when I've come into the ensuite that there's actually a really big lip between the jib board and the front face of the jam, but it's actually tight at the top, flush at the top and flush at the bottom. So pretty much just going to quickly check it with the straight edge. So what I'm pretty much going to do is I'm just going to check it with the level or a straight edge, and sure enough, this jam has actually got a huge bow in it. Now it's the only one out of the whole job, and I've actually never come across this before for some reason, but anyway, it is what it is. What I'm going to do to fix it, handy dandy, butt plane. Now I'm just going to probably start at the middle and just do that until I get it nice and straight. Come here for a second, I just want to show you this, what I'm doing here. Eh? Why you got your face covered? What? What's wrong?
As soon as I hit this bin around the box, oh.
Can you just come in here? That's all I wanted.
Oh, oh, you're such a cat.
Oh fuck, we had nachos for the dinner last night. They are fucking the beans are fucked. Holy shit. So what Fabian was asking there is, he's doing the architraves around the cavity slider, and we've got two size pins. We've got 45s and 32s. Now the 32s need to be installed around the cavity slider so we don't protrude through and hit the door. And also on that note, when we're coming through and installing these as well, I'll come back over into my stink den. We're actually not gluing the top join. That's just in case we need to pull the head out and get to the wheels and adjust these in here. Yeah, it's just safekeeping, really. Couple of tips and tricks for the cavity slider. Don't fucking pin the door in place.
Cause a man can only hold on for so long, and we should be proud. All that we can do is hope for miracles, or just let it go. But honey, we have to be together here in the stormy weather. So why do we hold on, even if it hurts so? It's breaking us apart. I guess we'll never know how it feels to see the shoreline. We have to be together, stuck in the stormy weather. It's almost like we were always here. Can't seem to recall when it all began. It's almost like you were always near. You were always near. It's almost like we were always here. Can't seem to recall when it all began. It's
Alright, we
almost
frickin'
like
smashed out all the frickin' architraves. Actually, Fabiano has. He's been pumping them out, getting better at each one, eh, Boyle?
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so now that they're all on, we've got to think about our skirting boards. Now, there's only specific spots we can put those in. That is in the bedrooms and the wardrobes. We can't do anything inside the lounge and other areas because there's laminate flooring going down. So that's the first tip. Don't put it down until the flooring's in. Now, second of all, we need to figure out exactly how we're going to start cutting and installing these boards. Now, there's a specific way we sort of like to do it, and we want to try and hide the joins as much as possible. And what I mean by that is, as you're entering the room, we want to minimize the sight of the join. So let's just say, for example, you're walking through and you come into this corner here. What we want to do is, we don't want to have this skirting board in here and then this one butting in, because we're going to be able to see this join. We'd rather have this skirting board running through and then this one butting in, because you're never going to be able to see that. And this is just in case there is a little bit of movement and stuff after time, and there could be a little hairline crack there. We're going to try and minimize that. So those are the things we need to sort of think about before we even start measuring and cutting. Now, once we've sort of deciphered that, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through and measure the whole room. Measure all the lengths in the room, and I'll just write them down where they go. And I'll also minus 10 mil for whenever there's a butt join like that. Well, not a butt join, but our false miter, which I'll talk to you about in a second. And that way I've got the whole room measurements. I can go to the droppy and cut them all.
19.
And he's just going through and scraping all the big hunks of plaster off the corners and the bottom. Sometimes the plasterers are pretty rough. Well, not rough, but they don't completely sand all the way down into the corners there. So we're just taking any of the big hunks off, and then we just go through and actually really clean up anything around here. And that way we're all prepped, ready to go to install our skirtings. Alright, so I've got my little measures. This is my little system I like to use. Now I work in 0.5 mils if needs be. So 11.5 is for the one right by the door there. And that's square. So I put little squares on each side. And then ones where I got a false miter, I'll just put a little triangle. And then I'll just put it on each side of the board so I'm not confused when I'm cutting them. This is Drake? Yeah, bro, far out. This is Drake. This is Drake's dad. Eh? When it comes to our internal corners for our skirting boards, I'd like to do false miters, and I'm going to demonstrate how I do that now. So first things first, we have our skirting board on the bed, hard down, hard in, and we want to cut our miter oversized from the piece of skirting that we're using. And the reason being is if we go to cut the miter, then we do our false miter and the false miter snaps, we still have length to recut it. Now, I'll just always have my hand on the piece of timber that I'm keeping, and when I do the miter, I'm just going to lift the saw up like this, keeping my hand out the way, and then cut. Doesn't have to be perfectly on that line because we're sort of over cutting. Yeah, and if the reason I lift this up is if I don't do it, sometimes the saw can actually like move out of square a little bit if you're doing it like that, so it just gives a more accurate cut. Now, flip your board around, get your pencil, put a little pencil line right on that cut edge there. And that's going to give us a bit of sight line for when we go to cut it. Now, I'll also sort of put my saw on just about 2 degrees. Because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to back cut this point right here slightly. And using one right at the front. Now that's pretty much what we're after. See that? Sort of paper thin as we can get it. Now, we can actually cut it to length. .205.5. Saws back. And that's how you do it. Just go install them, eh? Okay, so before I go and put any of my skirting boards on, you'll notice that we laid our jib horizontally. That means we've actually got a bit of a taper at the bottom. Now that's going to leave about a 1.5 mil taper. Well, the taper is about 1.5 mil, right? So if I go to put my skirting board on, it's actually going to push the skirting board in, and it's going to leave it on an angle. So I've ripped up a bunch of these 1.5 mil rippings. We're just going to go through and PVA them on, and then that way our skirting board is going to sit nice and square like that. Should technically just hold that on for now till we put our skirting board in. we'll try our best. So I bring this one up and try and hit the top of the bottom plate.
It's almost like you were always near. You were always near. It's almost like we were always here. Can't seem to recall when it all began.
Pretty much this is the final product. Looks like we've got a miter. Nice and tight, but it's actually butted in like this. Just a false miter. Butted in. Beauty. Making sure we're flush. Flush there. And tight.